Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Art 186 Computer Graphics with Adobe Illustrator for the spring semester 2022. Today, I will be covering two things. One will be to finish the last lesson, which is lesson 11, which covers brushes. I showed last Thursday. No, I'm sorry. It's lesson 12. My mistake. Last Thursday, I covered how to create and use the 5 basic categories of brushes in a general sense. And today I want to do the lesson step by step, show you how it's done. And then what we're going to do for the second part of our lesson today is that I want to talk about the next assignment, which is to do a product. Your Tokidoki assignment is due this Thursday, Friday, whatever, this week. And then the next lesson that you'll have or assignment that you'll have to work on will be to do a product in Illustrator. It can be either realistic or it can be stylized, and I will show you a couple of several examples of both. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a start file. This is the end file. Okay. So how did they create all these little tea leaves? How did they create the little design elements at the end of each of these strokes? How did they create a pattern that follows a path? They've done that in a couple of instances. How can you repeat and adjust an illustration to follow a path? Well, brush tools can do all of those things, and they have us used pretty much them all. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to zoom in on the word pure mental. Okay. Hope everybody can see that, and I'm going to select it. Now, where they want us to go is to get an artistic calligraphic pen. Where that can be, where all of these, I've already opened these different libraries or folders of different kinds of brushes are found under the library tab down here at the bottom of the brush folder. Okay, so the artistic, so if I go down to artistic and I go to calligraphic, that pops that one up. Now, every time you use a brush, it will add it to the brush panel that is specific to your file. You can edit these brushes. You can create new brushes if you wish. Excuse me. But when you do, they will be added. It will only be the brushes that you've added to your specific file that will enable you to edit them. You cannot edit them from the permanent library, only when you've added them to your file. So with this selected, we're going to come down here, and the one that they want us to choose is a number 5 oval. Okay, so with that selected, if I select that, you'll notice that it changed a little bit, and it's kind of subtle. If we want to change the color from pink to black, I can do that. And again, the stroke changes. If I want to edit the file itself, I can come back in here and I can double click on that file. Here's the 5-point oval. And now I can go ahead and I can make changes to this. Now we're going to change the angle of this to, I think they want it to, let's make it 35 degrees. Let's go back over here, 35. If I'm off a little bit, roundness is too much. I think we want that to be around 15%, maybe 20%, something like that. But notice the little icon and how it changes and the little preview windows. So I'm going to select 20. Yeah, I'm going to go back to 15. What the heck? We'll see what happens. And then I'm going to change the size of this to 8-point instead of 5-point. Okay, so you can create a whole series of custom brushes if you want. And it will show you, as it's done here, preview what it's going to look like. And now it looks like it's done. It has a more calligraphic feel that it was done with a broad pen. Really very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rename this 8-point oval. And I'll click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply it to the existing strokes. And now that I've added that, it should be right here. There's my 8-point oval. And now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And let's go ahead and draw with it just a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here with the brush tool. Make sure that the 8-point oval is selected. And let's go ahead and create the cross for the T. And just by clicking and dragging, notice how you get a really nice thick and thin stroke. In addition to that, what you can do is that if you select, let's go ahead and select here with the direct selection tool. And you can see where all the anchor points are that comprise this word. Using this brush, if you move over the edge here, and I click and I drag, whoops, I didn't want to do that, my mistake. Let's go back and make sure that I select the brush tool. Come on, where'd you go? There, right there. There we go. Now, when you move over that tip, the tip of it, move over the point, and I click and I drag, notice that it extends that path. And that's really kind of a nice feature too. So you can always go back. This is editable. You can always go back and make whatever changes you want to them. They're not permanent by any means. Change the color, can change the width, you can change the kind of brush stroke that you use. It really doesn't make any difference. So the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to start by creating some custom brushes. So that was a calligraphic brush, or a type of art brush. We're going to create our own brush, our own art brush in a minute. That's going to be made from this little illustration of tea leaves. So first I'll go ahead and I'll select this stroke right here. And you can see that already a brush has been applied to it. And it's this one right here, which is the charcoal feather. Now, if you want to remove any stroke, any brush strokes from any of these and just leave the path, just a plain single width path, you select this little button down here where it says remove brush stroke. Now it just goes back to a plain old single path. Well, what I want to do is I want to deselect this. And I'm going to use this illustration. And it's just a series of groups of paths that have been joined together. And now what I want to do is I'm going to click the little plus sign down here in the brush panel, and it will give me several options as to what kind of brush I want to make. Well, we're going to make, I could turn it into a calligraphic brush, a scatter brush, art brush. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select art brush for this. That's what I want. Boom. And now it gives me several options here. And I want to go ahead and I'm going to leave this alone, but I want it to stretch. I want it to scale proportionately, and I want it to stretch to fit between certain guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and they want us to put 7 3/8 inches. So that's 7.325. Okay, so it's going to be between. Now, right now, when this stretches, it's going to go the entire distance. But if we do it between certain lengths, then we can limit it how it will be resized. And the next will be 10.8587. 10.858. Well, that's close. 10.8587. Okay, there we go. So now it's changing the proportions of this. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we'll name it tea leaves. Okay, I'll click OK. And notice that that has now been added to our brush panel. And now I can select this, and I can apply the tea leaf to it. We can select all of these, in fact. We can select this one, and let's apply tea leaves to all of them. And they're going in the opposite direction. So what I need to do is to double click here. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's flip along the y-axis, and now it's flipped in the correct direction. And then what I want to do is I'm going to deselect, let's go ahead and click OK here. I want to apply to the strokes, and I'm just going to deselect this one, or select this one, and I want to enlarge it, but I want to enlarge it proportionately to the, and make sure that it's proportionately enlarged, not just a section of it, because now if I hold down the Shift key and I stretch it, it's not enlarging the way I would hope. So what I need to do now is I need to double click on this, and we're going to create a new brush. And I want it to scale proportionately now. And I don't want that to happen to all of them, but I'm going to go tea leaves 2. So I have a second one here. Make sure that I want it to leave strokes alone. And now what I can do is notice that I have a second one here. So I'll go ahead and I'll select this one, and I'm going to apply the new one. This is tea leaves 2. And notice that it changes proportions. It changes the size proportionally to the way I want it. Now what I can do is I can also select these other paths. Okay, just holding down the Shift key and selecting the preset paths that they've made for us. Now I'm going to select the first one, and there you go. Within, just in a couple of minutes, we have a really nice little illustration here. Another one that they want us to do too, that I forgot to mention, is that we have these paths right here that we want to apply strokes to. So we're going to come in here, and we want this one here, okay? I've already added it. It's under the Elegant Curl and Floral Brush Set. So what we want here, I've already added it here, is that you just select the path, apply the stroke, and it adds that nice little flourish to the very end. And again, I'll select this one here, and I'll add that one. Now, a lot of that has to do with, what end the flourish is positioned on, is, what, when and where you started the path. So and where the path ended. So if I start with a pen tool, and I click here, I go to here, and I end the path. So I'll go ahead and hold down the Command key and end it. And I select the path now. Now I started from the left and ended to the right. And now if I go ahead and I add that little flourish, notice that it adds to the right. Now if I go the little flourish to the right, now if I go ahead and I select the pen tool again, and I click here, and I click here, so I'm going from right to left, hold down the Command key, end it, select, oh, I didn't want to do that. Let's go ahead and select it. Let's add that little flourish ornament again. Now it goes to the other side. So it depends where the flourish is applied, depends on where you start and where you end the path. That's all. So if you're having difficulty controlling it, that's what we want. The next thing that they want us to do is we're going to create a pattern brush. That's going to be used down here. It's used oftentimes for borders and things like that. And I showed you guys this this feature last Thursday, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. And in order to create a pattern brush, you need to first use a pattern. Well, they provided this nice little illustration for us here, this little design element here. And what I need to do is I need to bring up my swatch panel. And I'm just going to simply click and drag, drag that inside the swatch panel, and you see the little plus sign. That's going to turn it into a pattern. Now I can go ahead and I can come back to my brushes. Let's go ahead and close that. Now I didn't name it. I probably should have. But we can go ahead and now, with that deselected, because I don't want it to apply to that, I'm going to create another new brush. And it gives me, there's limits now on what I can do because I didn't have an illustration selected. So it's going to ask me, do you want to create a new calligraphic brush, a bristle brush, or a pattern brush? Well, I want a pattern brush. So our choices are limited at the moment. So I'll click pattern. And now we have to figure out how we want the repetition of that pattern to follow the path. So on the straightaways here, I'm going to go ahead and click right here. And you can see here's the little flourish that we have, that we added. And now you can see that it applies it evenly to the entire path. But then we have inside and outside strokes that we need to take into account. So again, we can use the same pattern, or we can use, if we want, this one would be auto-centered, or I can go ahead and I can use this auto between. And now notice what it does for the outside corners. Likewise, if I want the inside corners to be a little bit different, or if I want the end of the path to be add a different element to it, I can do that as well. And there are some pretty interesting patterns that have been created, ropes and chains and all sorts of stuff that are really pretty nice. So I'm going to select the inside corner here. And again, I'll select this one. And now that they all fit really very nicely. And we'll call this one, what is it, leaves or something. Okay. So we have another brand new brush that we've added down here, a pattern brush. How is that applied? Quite easily, if we come back in here, you can see they've already provided a little ring for us down here. And again, it has no fill, but a black stroke. So now when I go ahead and I select this, very nice. Now what I can do is I can shrink it. And there's a variety of ways that you can do that. I can actually change the size of the brush, or, well, let's do that. I'll double click on here. And now what I want to do is I want to change the size of it, and we'll go ahead and we'll click preview. And that's at 100%. Let's go ahead and change it to maybe 50%. That's not too bad. I don't know if that's the size that they want us in the book or not, but it works for me. Okay. So as soon as I click OK, it's going to prompt me, and they usually do that. It'll say, do you want to leave strokes alone and only apply them to shapes in the future, paths in the future, or apply it to this existing stroke? And I want to apply it to that. So again, a very quick way. It requires a little bit of preparation, but a very quick way of applying evenly decorative patterns to a path. Now, they've already, for the little triangle, they've asked this to come in here. And I already got this pattern over here. It's the bristle, not the bristle brush, it's the other borders. And it's the one down here. It's called Geometric 17. And again, with it selected, I can select this one here, and I have a nice little pattern that follows the path all the way around. And if you wanted to enlarge that and actually see it in more detail, or you want to enlarge the pattern, you could. Very nice. The last thing that they want us to do, and then it's pretty much it for the lesson, is that they want us to pick a bristle brush here. And to be quite honest, I forget the size of the brush. So let's go back in here, grouping, bristle brush, pass. I just want to select, they want us to pick a round fan. So let's go ahead and select a fairly large one. Here's the fan brush that's 6 pixels. Okay, and I'm going to double click on it to change the size of it. Okay. So it's been added. Here's a 6 fan brush. And for those of you who are familiar with different kinds of brushes, they're fundamentally 3 different types. There's a round brush and there's a flat brush. The fan brush could be either, depending on how it's constructed, either like a round or a flat. And then there's also something that's in between called a filbert, and that's what this one looks like right here, a mop brush. But those are your basic brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and select this fan brush here. And if you want, you can always test them, see what they look like here. And I want to select, let's bring up the palette here, and we want kind of a light green here. I think this might be the one right here. There we go. And I don't want it for the fill. I want it for the stroke. And the fill I want to be none. Okay. And let's test this out. So strokes are applied, or brushes are applied to the strokes, not to the fills. So let's try again and let's see what we get here. And it has a, a soft like quality to it, much as, but we want it to be a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and I think I'm going to select this color instead. Let's double click on the brush and let's change its properties. So the brush size is going to be now, instead of 6, it's going to be 10 millimeters. Just scroll it up here, or I could just punch it in myself. Sometimes these don't require much adjustment at all, so that pushes it all the way. Brush length, 150%, so we're going to leave that alone. Brush density we're going to leave that alone at 33%. Brush thickness, we're going to go ahead and move that a little bit and make it 70%. Paint opacity, we'll leave that at 75%. And the stiffness, 50%. This will be, it gives you a little preview in the preview window, and that's okay. We'll call it, round fan. I'm going to call it mop 3. Click OK. And it should add it. Here it is now. And now what I can do with that color selected, I can come back in here and we can add some nice strokes to this. Just it softens the harshness of our illustration a little bit. So I can come back in here and, okay, and that's a bit much. That's not what I want here. I'm going to go back here. That's not what we're doing here. I'm going to look at the finished one real quick. Let's look at here and let's look at their brush and see where I messed up. Let's go ahead and select the path. So I guess I have to hit Command Y so I can see the paths a little bit better. So I'm going to select it. I guess it's locked. So now I got to go to layers. Wrong. Let's go to layers. Let's close this. There's layers. Okay. Yeah, this is locked. So let's select this. And with that selected, let's look at the brushes. And it is the same. It's the 10 millimeter, but maybe there's something that I didn't change. It should be a little bit bigger. So size 10 millimeters, bristle length 150%, brush density 33%, brush thickness 70, 75, 50, stiffness. So all those look the same. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit Command Y. Let's bring it back. Let's select the brush again. Let's apply this. And that is correct. So I'm going to go, I was correct with that. So let's go back to the start. And let's try again. I'm going to go ahead with this fan brush now. It's 10 pixels. And just click, whoops, no. I gotta go ahead with the brush tool. That would be helpful. And click and drag. Now, if I don't like that, I can always double click on this and we can look at the previews, and maybe I wanted 100 millimeters. I don't know. I could go ahead and do that. And you can see preview how big that's going to be. No, it has a limit. There we go. It won't allow me to make it any bigger. So I'm kind of stuck. This isn't exactly what I had hoped for the preview, but I'll click OK. And that's our bristle brush library, and that's what we want. So let's go ahead here. Maybe we wanted a slightly different bristle brush. Anyway, the final elements to this is to just simply add some swashes on here with color. It's not coming out quite like the book, because I probably selected the wrong brush, but you get the basic idea. Okay, so that's the lesson. We can come back in here and create some more brushes here. Now, we can come back and we can change the thickness of it. Let's see if we have a little bit thicker one to work from. No, we don't. So this one is the biggest one we have. Maybe let's go ahead and let's select a couple of these. I'm curious now because we have enough time. I'm going to select this one and let's select this round brush here. And I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to change its properties to, yeah, it doesn't look any better. So I'm not quite sure. I must have selected the wrong one. So let's go into libraries. Let's go into bristle brushes. And I already have the bristle brushes up. So what am I not selecting that's correct? I'm not sure. So anyway, it doesn't look quite like I had planned at the very end. I think they're kind of stretching anyway for an appearance to this anyway. But anyway, it's kind of nice. Okay, so that's how we've used some basic brushes. And I showed you the other day how to create scatter brush and do that. That's another brush type that you can use. Brushes, again, that can be very useful in not every situation, but they can add nice texture, contrast to the stiff, precise kind of mechanical approach that we've done with a brush, with our illustrations so far. So that's where I'm going to end that. And then for another 10, 15 minutes, I want to talk about your next assignment. Now, in my Pinterest account, I have put in the category of Adobe illustrations several examples. Before I talk about this, though, do any of you have any questions? No? Clear as mud? Okay. So, back in the day, the popular kind of product illustration to make was one that was photorealistic. So here's one that's of a coffee cup with coffee spilling out. It's nicely done. Yes, this is your product assignment. That's correct. So this is the next one after the Tokidoki assignment is due, which is, it's due this week. Okay. So this is a product, coffee cup, something that's mechanical. If you click on this, this little button right here, it will take you to YouTube, and there is an hour video on how to construct this. from top to bottom. The other example that I have for realistic, hold on here. I didn't want to do that. Let's go back to I want to go to my account, and I want to go to, here we go. I want to go to my Adobe Illustrator examples. There we go. So here's another one of a liquor bottle. Again, done in Adobe Illustrator. Highly stylized, but really it has a pretty photorealistic appearance to it. Very nice. Now, I don't have any videos on this, but this is an approach you can take. These days, though, because 3D modeling is used extensively for product pieces, and so is Photoshop and that sort of thing, that instead of spending all this time, and it does take a lot of time to build one of these illustrations, that it makes more sense now to do something in a stylized approach. So that's what the other examples that I've had that I show you. So here's a good one here for an Illustrator approach to doing for a game module here. Some other examples, there are lots of food examples, shoe examples. One of my favorites here is this one right here, which is for Perfume Bottle. Not realistic, but stylized. People have done them realistically. So if that's your thing, go for it. That's how I used to assign this assignment, is to make sure that it was done realistically, but I don't know that that's necessarily a good approach anymore. There's a couple of others that I really like here. The food ones, this one is nice. Okay, so there you have a little teapot. You have some dishes and some food here, all done, with simply 3 different tones, 4 maybe tops. We have white, we have a light, medium, and dark, and for the yellow tones, and then a couple of other colors, very limited palettes. Okay, very nice. So let me go back out of here. There we go. Okay. If you want to get, something more mechanical, this old Sony Walkman is done nicely. Again, it's very limited palette. It's very stylized. It does not look realistic by any means. The only glitch that I can see with it that they probably could have fixed is if you look at the cord right here, see how there's that abrupt bend right here? That I would change that so it's a little bit rounder, but I'm being kind of picky. It's done really nicely with the shadows and everything. So let's go back again. If you want to be more illustrative, there's some here that I have of sailboats in this particular car. A car is a nice one, but look at the angle that it's shot at. Again, very stylized with a strong drop shadow. Notice how they used the streaks in the front. Nice use of a brush tool. Pretty nice. So you're welcome to look at these. The other one that I really like too is this sailboat. Very simple approach, but elegant in how they've designed it with the repetitive horizontal stripes, and then they changed them here to make it look like it was in a wave. I have a Q&A here, so let me bring that up. No, in answer to you, Arturo, no, the product does not have to be realistic. But when you pick an approach like this that's highly stylized, it has to be really precise. for it to work. Look at the examples that I have, the car, the Sony Walkman. If you like food, oh, another one of my favorite food ones here is this expanded view of a sandwich. I mean, that doesn't look realistic at all. It's a stylized approach to it. And again, if you break your values down into 3 or 4 different tones and work with a limited palette, it will work pretty well for you. But it starts with a drawing, and that drawing can be from a photograph. It can be one that you have hand drawn. More food. We have this, cocktail drink. This doesn't look realistic at all. Okay. What else do I have here? There's lots more food stuff. Later on, when we get to I don't know why I saved this one. I really like it. But for your final assignment, you're to do an architectural detail or a portrait. And this would be really kind of nice stylized approach to an interior room. So again, how you access these is if you go to my website, and it doesn't matter what page you're on, scroll to the bottom, and the middle icon at the bottom, Pinterest, and you can search for your own as well. Okay, so here's mine, and then here are the different categories that you can look at. The one that pertains to our class is the Adobe Illustrator art. That's what I have here. Okay, and I have 36 examples. Okay, some are more illustrative than others. Some are pretty straightforward. Food is a very popular topic. But, notice we have kind of a retro look for a television here. We have a stylized approach to the cigarette on end table with a lamp. Here's one, a top view of an old, record player. Poker chips and cards. Again, I like the sailboats are some of my favorite. So here's, lots of examples for you to choose from. So even though they're not realistic, these are very finished and well-designed illustrations. The shoe is nice too. Okay. So that's it for today, folks. That's all I have. Again, samples of your next assignment, finishing up lesson 12. We only have 2 more lessons to do. So I'm really kind of stretch it out a little bit and make sure that you have plenty of time to work on your next 2 assignments and to really spend some time on them. Okay. So are there any more questions before we finish up today? I'm going to do something here before I go. Oh, there's your webs. I'm going to select this, and I don't want all of it. I just want part of it. Well, and let me double click on that. I'm going to select the path, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to go back to my start file, and I'm going to paste it. There it is. Now let's see what we have. So there's the 10 pixel. Let's see what I did differently. So 10 pixels, 150%, 33, 70, 75, 50. So it's all the same. Well, what we could do is we could change the thickness of it. also could be the fact too that maybe if I go ahead and I use mine, I like deconstructing things to see how they work. And that's something that you guys should try to do. So if I click across, now it's working. So why it wasn't working before, I don't know. There we go. That's what we want. Let me select this other path down here and get rid of it. Okay. So if there aren't any more questions, whoop, oh, I don't want that one. I want this one. No, that's not the one. This is the one. No, that's not it either. So which one did I pick? I'm confused. Okay, well, give it a whirl. That's it. We're done for today. See everybody Thursday, and we'll work on some more illustrations and examples and maybe watch a tutorial or two. See how you might approach your next assignment. Okie doke. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.